Dave Mustaine hadn't been kicked out of Metallica, do you think you would have formed Megadeth?
Yeah.
That would have been it?
Yeah, I would be playing with Megadeth. Well, with better vocals, though.
Better vocals?
Because I can sing better than that guy.
Can you sing a little bit like Dave Mustaine?
Yeah, would not put that on any person.
Ever?
Singing like Dave Mustaine.
Evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it hides behind fame, fortune, and the spotlight of rock and roll. Kirk Hammett knows this better than most. He's witnessed the dark underbelly of the music industry firsthand. Now, at 66, he's finally opening up about the 5 most evil figures in rock history. And trust me on this, number 1's going to leave you absolutely terrified. At number 5, we have Yngwie Malmsteen, the Swedish neoclassical virtuoso. Malmsteen is known for lightning-fast playing and absolute technical perfection. Back in 1994, a conflict erupted between them during a blindfold test. That's when the tension really began. Malmsteen couldn't understand Kirk's approach to playing guitar at all. To Malmsteen, guitar was all about speed, accuracy, and classical technique transplanted into metal. He believed musicians should aim for flawless execution, and that technical mastery was what separated great players from everyone else. So, during Guitar World's 1994 blindfold test, Malmsteen listened to Metallica's Master of Puppets without knowing who played it. His reaction was brutal. He said, "The band has tremendous force in songwriting, but the lead guitar player, Kirk Hammett, is not very good. He can play fast, but his choice of notes and sense of pitch are horrible." He didn't stop there. He also added, "I don't think that he plays with musicality or plays in tune. Rather than lifting the song, his solo seems to be an anti-climax." Basically, Malmsteen was saying Kirk played out of tune and actually made the song worse. Those are devastating words coming from one of the world's fastest guitarists. And Malmsteen added even more criticism. He said Kirk's guitar solos were too easy and didn't show much skill. Since Malmsteen had worked for years to master classical guitar techniques, he felt Kirk's way of playing with emotion was just lazy. Malmsteen even went after Satriani, Kirk's teacher, during the same interview. He called Kirk's pentatonic playing run-of-the-mill and out of tune and terrible. Malmsteen thought that bending notes, like in blues music, was old-fashioned. He believed guitar players should be trying new and different styles. Now, Kirk never responded directly to Malmsteen's attacks in interviews, but he made his position clear through his playing philosophy. In a 2023 interview with Total Guitar regarding criticism, he said, "Yeah, my friends down the street could probably play a better solo than Lux Eterna, but what's the point? For me, what's appropriate is playing the song and playing in the moment." Kirk valued exactly what Malmsteen criticized. He cared about the song, the emotion, not technical flashiness. Kirk said that while he respects players like Satriani and Malmsteen, he doesn't believe technique is everything. And in 2023, Kirk took a shot at sweep picking, calling it incredibly easy, but it sounds incredibly hard. Because of that conflict, they never developed a strong friendship, and Kirk ended up considering him an evil person in the industry. Coming in at number 4 is Tim Henson, guitarist from the band Polyphia. So in 2021, Tim made a comment that sparked one of the biggest guitar controversies of the decade. He was on Rick Beato's YouTube channel, talking with modern metal legends Tosin Abasi and Misha Mansour about guitar techniques. And he casually mentioned that he avoids boomer-ish bends in his playing. It was just a throwaway comment. But man, it exploded into this massive debate. Fast forward to early 2025. Rolling Stone brought up this whole phrase to Kirk Hammett, and his response was sharp, sarcastic, and revealing. He said, "I love that. Is he going to call Eddie Van Halen a boomer guitar player?" Think about that for a second. Eddie Van Halen was born in 1955. Technically, that makes him a baby boomer, one of the most revolutionary guitarists who ever lived. But Kirk's point went way deeper than that. He saw Tim's comment as straight-up disrespect. Not just to him personally, but to the legends who built the foundation of modern guitar playing, and Kirk didn't hold back. Kirk called Tim's music challenging and complex, almost like a math exercise, rather than something that just hits you in the gut. He argued that while the playing is technically impressive, it doesn't connect on that raw, emotional level. Kirk said, "Sometimes people just want to listen to music and not feel challenged. They want something comforting and satisfying." In Kirk's view, Tim's style appeals to only a very small category of people who can actually understand it. He even admitted that he'd rather just put on a Misfits album and sing along than listen to something that's so technically complicated. Now here's where it gets interesting. Tim Henson's response was total class. He got a Google alert about Kirk mentioning him, and he said, "This is a compliment and a diss at the same time from Kirk Hammett." But instead of firing back with anger or defensiveness, Tim invited Kirk to talk about it over a beer. He even asked Metallica to take Polyphia on tour. He said, "Kirk, if you're reading this, thank you for the acknowledgement. You're a legend. Take us on tour, dude." That response perfectly captures the generational divide between these two guitarists. Tim grew up watching Kirk and respects the legacy he's built, but he's also pushing guitar into entirely new territories that sound nothing like traditional rock. This conflict runs way deeper than just different musical styles. This is Kirk Hammett fighting to prove that his approach still has value, that the style being labeled with terms like boomer bends still has power and still deserves respect in the modern era of guitar playing. And because of that casual comment, Tim ended up on the list of people Kirk disliked at some point in his life. At number 3, we have Gary Holt, the guitarist who took over Exodus after Kirk left for Metallica. Kirk founded Exodus in the early 1980s with his friend Paul Bailoff. The band recorded these raw demos and built their identity around heavy riffs and aggressive energy. But Kirk had bigger dreams. When Metallica called in April 1983, Kirk couldn't say no. He left Exodus after only a few months with the band. Paul Bailoff was devastated and angry. According to Kirk, Paul Bailoff was so pissed that he poured a beer over my head. He said, "I can't believe you're doing this, Kirk," then poured his beer over my head. The anger was real and physical, but what made Gary Holt even more upset came later. According to them, Kirk brought Exodus riffs with him to Metallica. Some of the guitar material Kirk had written for Exodus ended up in Metallica songs. Gary Holt noticed this and became furious. Holt claimed that Kirk used riffs from Exodus's Impaler for Metallica's Trapped Under Ice. He also said Kirk borrowed the famous "Die by my hand" line from Exodus's song Die by his hand and used it in Metallica's song Creeping Death. Gary Holt confronted Kirk about the stolen material. Holt said, "I recall calling Kirk up and giving him a great deal of grief. He said, 'I thought I asked you if it was okay.' I'm like, 'No, you didn't.'" Holt was furious because he watched 60,000 people chant "Die by my hand" at Metallica shows when he believed that idea came from his band. He said, "So I've had the pleasure of watching 60,000 people chant "Die by my hand" at Metallica shows, yet I've never received a penny for it." Kirk viewed his ex-bandmates as evil in the rock industry, jealous of his success. The fact that they never spoke after his departure highlights the serious rift that existed between them. But later, Kirk admitted feeling guilty about this. He acknowledged that some early Metallica riffs traced back to his demo-era work with Exodus. Kirk said, "I always had guilty feelings about that. Eventually, things improved between them." Kirk appeared on Exodus's 2014 album Blood In, Blood Out. Gary later spoke warmly about how Kirk taught him guitar in his early days. Holt said on Instagram, "Congratulations, Kirk. I love you, bro. Thanks for starting me on this journey." The past hurt, but eventually faded. At number 2, we've got Dave Mustaine. So for decades, Dave Mustaine went after Kirk Hammett relentlessly. He kept saying Kirk was nothing but a copycat who built his entire career on stolen riffs. And because of all these campaigns and interviews, Kirk started seeing Dave as this evil force in the rock industry. Now, the story really begins when Dave got fired from Metallica, right before they were about to record their first album. His drinking had gotten out of control, he was violent, and the band just couldn't deal with it anymore. On that very same day, Kirk Hammett was brought in to replace him. Mustaine was absolutely furious, heartbroken too, and he immediately went to war with his old band in the public eye. Kirk became his main target. Mustaine kept claiming that Kirk had ripped off every lead break I'd played on the band's early demos. He said Kirk had basically stolen his job. And for decades, I mean literally decades, Mustaine kept repeating these claims in interview after interview. He built this whole narrative that Kirk was just some copycat playing another man's music. But here's where it gets interesting. Instead of firing back, Kirk did something totally unexpected. He showed empathy. He said many times over the years, "I've never ever had a problem with Dave." He didn't see Mustaine as an enemy. He saw him as this tragic figure. He's described him as someone who was just really sad, really angry, and really frustrated about his situation with Metallica, and he never could let that go. Kirk actually understood the deep pain behind all that anger. He once compared Mustaine getting kicked out of Metallica to the woman of your life leaving you. I mean, that's a pretty remarkable level of understanding for someone who'd been publicly attacked for years. Now, this long Cold War between them finally started to thaw when Metallica invited Mustaine to play with them at their 30th anniversary shows. Kirk said it was super cathartic for him and that the reunion helped to heal some scars. And in recent years, Mustaine has finally softened his stance. He admitted that he unfairly picked on Kirk over the years. He even said that Kirk did me an honor by trying to play my solos the way he did, and that pretty much brought this 40-year saga to a peaceful close. While everyone saw this as a bitter feud, the relationship between Kirk and Mustaine was actually way more complex. It was this dynamic that, in a strange way, helped build both of their legacies. Think about it. Mustaine's burning rage over getting fired became the creative fuel for his band, Megadeth. He literally built his entire career on the idea of being faster, meaner, and more technical than Metallica. It became his greatest motivation. And for Kirk, stepping into Mustaine's shoes was this incredible challenge. Right from the start, he was being compared to this brilliant guitarist who was also a key songwriter. The constant criticism from Mustaine, all that public pressure, forced Kirk to prove himself over and over again. He couldn't just be a replacement. He had to become Kirk Hammett, the undisputed guitarist of Metallica. Mustaine actually admitted later on that he often picked on Kirk simply because it was easy when he was really angry at James and Lars, which reveals that Kirk was often just a convenient target. So in a weird way, this feud was actually necessary. Mustaine needed his anger at Metallica to create Megadeth, and Kirk needed to overcome the ghost of Mustaine to become a legend in his own right. And at number 1, we have James Hetfield. Now this is the most shocking and painful name on the entire list, because this enemy wasn't some outsider, wasn't a rival, wasn't a ghost from the past. This was the man standing right next to him on stage every single night for 40 years. This was the brother who, over the decades, became the architect of his creative prison. From the outside looking in, James and Kirk are the iconic guitar duo of heavy metal, but behind the scenes, their relationship is way more complicated and honestly, pretty dark. Kirk himself has described their bond in some really chilling terms. He said, "We connect in a place that is not comfortable. It's not warm and fuzzy. It's actually a scary place, and a place that's super challenging and dark." According to close sources to the band, Kirk has had to suppress his own needs and creativity to keep James happy because of James's anger issues and controlling behavior. James is the band's primary creative force, and he's got a reputation for not being very accepting towards bandmates' material. And this whole dynamic was brutally exposed during the making of the album Hardwired to Self-Destruct. So Kirk lost his phone, which had hundreds of new riff ideas he'd recorded for the album on it. It was a devastating creative loss. But instead of showing any sympathy, James publicly dismissed it. He called it an excuse in an interview. That single comment showed just a profound lack of respect for Kirk's contributions. And this wasn't just a one-time thing. The band's own documentary, Some Kind of Monster, actually showed scenes where Kirk's musical ideas were repeatedly ignored or just brushed aside by James and Lars. He became used to being the quiet one in the room, the one whose voice just wasn't heard. And this power imbalance in the band took a heavy toll on Kirk. The most disturbing claim comes from friends who say that Kirk lives in constant fear of upsetting James. They say he feels trapped in a friendship where he has no real power or voice. This paints a picture of this really toxic relationship where one person's creative spirit has just been slowly crushed by a dominant and controlling partner. For years now, so many fans have been wondering, why have Kirk's guitar solos become less memorable? Why did he stop contributing riffs to the band's albums? Some people have called him lazy, said he's bored, but the truth may be much sadder than that. His creative decline isn't a sign of boredom. It's actually a psychological condition known as learned helplessness. After decades of having his ideas rejected, his contributions dismissed, he may have simply learned that it was pointless to even try. When he joined the band, he entered this world that was run by two powerful leaders, James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich. His role was to play guitar, not to challenge their authority. And when he did try to contribute, his efforts were just ignored. That lost phone incident was the final public humiliation. His creative work was treated like a joke by his own bandmate. So Kirk Hammett hasn't stopped caring about music. He's been conditioned to believe his creative voice just doesn't matter within Metallica. The greatest evil he faced wasn't some loud, angry rival. It was the slow, quiet erosion of his confidence and creativity by the person he should have been able to trust the most. So these are the 5 people Kirk Hammett considered the most evil in rock history. Each one shaped Kirk's journey in ways both dark and transformative. These conflicts weren't just personal battles, they defined an era of rock and roll. If you enjoyed this dark side of rock history, make sure to hit that like button and let us know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another story from the world of rock and metal.